I'm alive. I shouldn't be.
He should not be alive. This is unfucking believable.
From the heart of trucker America, my boy Reed Coverdale, host of The Naturalist Capitalist.
This is what government does. It sucks.
If you think you're going to win people over by stating commonplaces, you're just selling the other part.
It is about dictating every transaction that you have for the rest of your life.
Mr. Potato Head.
Coverdale is the guy to be president of the United States.
You intimidated me with your perfect 74 stat.
That was the beginning of my problems.
He died doing what he loved, chasing a minor.
But I'll put a 50 cal attached to my Suburban.
Libertarians need to get out of New York.
The gulag is going to be in your house.
This guy's a fucking murderer. He deserves to be in a
dungeon. Gotta get him out of that truck at night and get him into the White House.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Naturalist Capitalist. It's Halloween night, so I hope you're out trick-or-treating instead of watching this live. But if you're here watching me live, I appreciate it. Thanks for being here. I've got a returning guest to the show. He's been on several times. He was the vice presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party in 2020, and he has a monopoly on the best USS Liberty jokes. Spike Cohen, how are we doing tonight, man?
I'll tell you, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. I will say, I think your meme, your USS Liberty meme that you shared at least on Instagram earlier today or yesterday, that might have all of mine be. It was good. Yeah,
the best one I've seen is Ben Shapiro in an Israeli airplane, and instead of the USS Liberty, it's the USS Libtard, and then the two guns on the airplane say facts and logic. That's the best one I've seen.
That has layers. I like that. Actually, that's the best one now. That's better than anything you or I have done.
Yeah, I gotta upload that one to Instagram. I don't think I have it up there. So I've got a little Halloween secret that I don't know. Well, actually, I said it on Forest Mommy's channel yesterday, but I don't think I've ever told my audience. I have never been trick-or-treating in my whole life.
Me either.
You didn't either? I was wondering. Yeah, what's the... So from my parents' perspective, from a fundamentalist Christian perspective, it was evil to participate in Halloween. And it's not like we wouldn't be friends with people who participated, but we couldn't do it. Was it the same sort of thing with you? Or...
Yeah, pretty much. From my fundamentalist Messianic Judaist background, I guess Jewish, not Judaist background, it was the same thing. The Halloween is of the devil and all of that. And even though I'm not a practicing a Jew anymore, it still feels weird, right? Like it's, and I know it's from decades of conditioning, but it feels weird. It's like, yeah, we're gonna all dress up like Satan and give each other candy, and I'm like, and some of us are gonna dress like slutty nurses. And it's like, all right, go have fun. I'll see you tomorrow. It's weird. It's not something that really appeals to me. Don't have a problem with it at all. But I've just never. And yeah, it was the same thing. Like my friends would do it, and my parents are like, what they're doing is demonic, and I'm like, but they're still my friends, right? Oh yeah, they're your friends. They're fine. They're cool. But what they're doing is demonic.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So yeah, I know it's because of that conditioning, but it does not appeal to me at all.
Yeah, see, it always appealed to me. I love the idea of like dressing up and going and getting candy. I mean,
oh wow,
sounds like tons of fun, but never got to do it. And it was one of those things that lasted all the way through all five of us kids. Because with most of the standards, with my older sister and I, they were very strict with. And then my younger brother, they were a little bit looser with, and they just, as it went down the line, they got less and less strict. But the trick-or-treating thing, all the way down, I think my I forget how old my youngest sister was, but she was like 16 or something, and she was just doing it for fun or something. And my parents were like, nope, you can't. It was crazy, but it was just one of those things. So.
Yeah. It's weird. Even, getting into my later teens, it was nothing my parents were going to enforce against me or I'd be in any trouble. They'd just be disappointed. Just was never, I don't know. It was just something that never really, I'm not against costumes. I'm not against candy, but if you combine them at the end of October, I don't like it.
It's demonic.
Yeah. It's demonic. It's demonic. It's a thing that I don't even really believe in, but it's bad. And honestly, it's just at this point, I haven't done it up to this point. I guess I just find it odd, but I think it's great. If people want to do it, it's fantastic. And it teaches kids the value of networking. And when their parents take a good bit of their candy, they learn a devastating lesson about taxes.
That's right. And then they're prime suspects for being hired for Young Americans for Liberty to go knock on doors for candidates after they're used to doing it for candy. If you can do it for candy, you can do it for liberty, right?
If you can do it for candy, and you can still dress up too. And you can show like, I'm a slutty nurse. Here's why you should vote for, Thomas Massey.
I like it. Oh man, dude. I mean, every election, I just think it can't get much worse than this as far as like who they're putting up. But
and then
this year is amazing. I can't believe how amazing it is. Like, did you watch the Pennsylvania debate with Oz and Fetterman at all? Did you suffer through that? I mean, I can't lie. I was having the time of my life. I was laughing so hard, but it was at the same time like, oh my God, why are we doing this?
Yeah, I honestly didn't watch it because I think I had something that evening, but I also I've seen clips of it, and my God, like why I'm going to be clear. I want Fetterman to win, not because I'm a fan of Fetterman.
Unironically.
I just want to make this clear.
Yeah.
Like, if it's got to be, I want to say, if it's not going to be the Libertarian winning or whatever, if it's going to be a Republican or a Democrat winning, I want Fetterman to win. Not because I think I agree with his policies. Although I do agree with the caricature from the Republicans of what Fetterman wants to do. I agree with at least some of that. Especially when it comes to, ending the entire war on drugs. If that's true, I'm totally based. I'm 100% behind that. It's not because of that. It's because for the same reason that if Chase Oliver doesn't win for Senate in Georgia, I want Herschel Walker to win. I want that the absolute caricatures to be in the Senate, making a total mockery of the idea that this way, this system we have is the best way to pick who's going to rule over us, and that it's actually like kind of the worst way, one of the worst ways to choose this. And I just think it's incredible. And so, yeah, I would like to see that.
Yeah, we actually brainstormed about this a lot when we were down in Maryland together. We were thinking like maybe a Walker Fetterman ticket in 2024 where they embrace bipartisanship. They do like a unity ticket. That whole article's a unity thing. Like instead of going with Gabbard and Crenshaw or whoever it was, it's like no guys, we have the candidates for you. These guys will really shake things up and give the people what they want.
Republicans and Democrats will come together to make every excuse possible for the 5 years of campaigning and then being president for actually probably 9 years of campaigning for a year and then 2 terms as president and vice president. I'm sold. I'm with it, and I'm right. Walker, Fetterman, Walker. Let's do it. I think that I think it is incredible that people will look at that and go, "Yep, this 2-party system is really serving us really well." I think it's awesome. By the way, side note, and you know this, when we were in Maryland, you made sure that I was able to get places because my back blew out multiple times, and I was like an old man, like, at a 45-degree angle walking around like this. And if anyone liked the speech I gave at the Free Julian Assange rally in DC, it's because of this man that I was even there.
It's true.
He drove me there.
I filmed it too.
Yes, and he filmed it too. Oh yeah, if you like the filming of it, then you I mean, again, this guy was the MVP.
Yeah.
He got me there in one piece, and I actually had to my back was so bad I couldn't sit up. I had to lay down in the back seat of his car, which apparently was perfectly made for supporting my lower back, because I got out feeling wonderful, walked around like a champ all day long, and then the next day blew it out even worse, and then like 3 days later blew it out even worse, and had to live on ibuprofen for like 3 weeks after that. But I'm good now.
Yeah, you were down at like LibertyCon. I was watching your debate with Destiny, and right at the beginning you were saying, yeah, my back is still really hurt. And I was like, wow, still? And then I was supposed to have you on like last week or the week before or something, and Brian just told me, no, his back is bad. And I was like, wow. Damn, he really
was bad.
So is that the first time you've ever done it that bad, or?
So I think what happened. So the short answer is no. It used to be a lot worse than it is. It was actually at its worst in my 20s, and I've been doing a lot of like physical therapy and core work over the years, so it's better. I think what the problem was is that usually when my back goes out, I sit my ass down somewhere and relax and go to a physical therapist or a chiropractor and get it better, and then I go and do stuff. But because of my schedule, that wasn't an option. So I had to literally hobble from place to place to speak at the rally, to speak at Liberty Speaks, which we were both at, to speak, to then go down to LibertyCon and do multiple things there. And I just had to kind of, grimace and get through it. I will say, I'm now a fan of Big Pharma, or at least whoever made ibuprofen, because that's what got me through. Like, I maxed out my daily, like, I actually looked up what is the maximum amount of ibuprofen I could take before I die. And I took that much, like just maybe shy of death. I took that for about a week or so, and I tapered off until now. I haven't taken it for a few days now, so I'm pretty much back to 100%. That was the longest it was, but it was because it kept going out, because I kept not sitting my ass down and getting better. I kept like, I guess I got to get to the airport for my next thing, and like, hobbling through the airport.
Yeah, well, at least the house we were staying in was like one floor, no staircases, no like weird. It wasn't like a 200-year-old house or anything like that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like a 200 and some odd year old house that not only had multiple floors, but also had multiple floors on each floor where there was like step ups and stuff. It was a really cool house. Like, that was an awesome house we stayed in. But if your back goes out multiple times, not the best house to be in. I would have preferred the whole time. I'm like, man, I wish this were a rancher, and you just walk, you just keep walking to the bedroom. You don't have to go up and down stairs. But, it was good. The owners of that house were incredibly hospitable, and that event was really cool. And getting to go to the rally was great. Everything was fantastic except my back. My back was bad. Everything else was great.
And the car, like you said, it was a miracle working seat in the back there that, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a religious person, but maybe the healing power of Christ has been, bestowed upon my car for some reason, and I just can't escape it. So
it was, and I told you this, it was Jesus's will for you to survive that accident. And the meme proves that. But what we didn't know, okay, great, that was Jesus's will for you to survive the accident, but why would he destroy your truck in the process? That seems
now it's all coming together.
Now we know. Had you had that truck, I would have had to be in the back of the cab, or the
bed,
the bed. Yeah, I had to be in the bed of the truck, just bouncing along the highway there on the way to DC. That would definitely not have been good for my back. He made sure that you would, have to give up that car that you had for all that time, so that you would get this exact car. He guided your hands through the process of choosing that car. This was, checkmate atheists. Anyone who thinks that there's not a divine inspired will here to all things, wrong.
Yeah. No, I mean, just like Big Pharma was your unlibertarian becoming moment because, of ibuprofen, this is where I can't hold on to my atheism anymore. I mean, the backseat of my car has led me to Christ. So what can I say?
If I had a nickel for every time someone said that sentence.
Yeah. You'd have a nickel.
I'd have at least one nickel.
We also came up with Coverdale's razor on the trip. It was
wow.
It's pretty good. So
that was good.
For people who don't know what the hell I'm talking about, there's Occam's razor, which is I'm gonna butcher the wording here, but it's something along the lines of like never always assume the most simple explanation for every incident or something like that. That's not the right wording. And then Hanlon's razor is never attribute to malice that which can be attributed to ignorance, which is the one I was copying more closely. And so this is just applying to the liberty movement. I mean, it can apply outside it too, but it's mostly applying to the liberty movement. So Coverdale's razor, this is just an observation I've made throughout my time in this movement, is never attribute to malice that which can be equally attributed to autism. And it really makes it a lot easier if you start seeing things through that lens. All your frustrations, all your confusion, all your built up anger or grudges you're holding against people, it just kind of all goes away. It's like, I know this isn't your fault.
This isn't your fault. This is neurodivergence. And very often, if you're upset, and when I say it's neurodivergence, it's often on both people's part. So it's not just the one person. It's often every single person involved. And so, yes, that often leads to interpersonal conflict. And I mean, thankfully, we've seen that with some of the younger generations, they've gotten a lot better with early intervention therapy. So hopefully this will resolve itself over time. But I do think that, I think there's a lot happening here where there's a lot of social cues just being missed on multiple fronts. And you can, again, do not attribute to malice unless it's Michael Malice, then you have to attribute it to
That's true.
Literal malice. But anything else, one would attribute to some form of neurodivergence, autism, ADHD, and so forth.
It's just usually autism and like other areas of life doesn't have this amount of weaponization. Like there's not this amount of knowledge and like purpose-driven information behind it. So it's just it's really radioactive when you run into it.
It's purpose-driven autism. Yeah,
the worst kind. Also the most effective kind.
And the best kind, really. It's the best of it's the best and the worst. It's just everything. It's the most. It's the most.
Yeah. Also, at this Assange event in DC, we actually found that despite the 30 progressive members of Congress that wrote Biden to, try to take a more, a more peaceful and strategy to try to talk with the Russians and de-escalate things, and they retracted it. Everyone has said, okay, the anti-war left is officially dead. In Congress, that is true, but we found some real live specimen of the anti-war left who still exist, and they have a shocking scientific discovery related to free speech that I had never heard before. I was wondering if you could tell us what that was, Spike.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, like you said, based as hell. You've got all these like communists and socialists and Bernie bros and far leftists who were one of the few things that I found redeemable was their consistent anti-war stance until a few years ago. And to see that there's still a pretty significant number of them that feel that way, I was very happy. I'd like to see the anti-war left become mainstream again within the left. I'd like to see that again. Like it was a good thing. So that was really good. But yes, we did learn from none other than 2016 Green Party presidential candidate, Dr. Jill Stein, that this issue of Julian Assange is not just about free speech. And it's not just about holding government accountable. And it's not even just about protecting journalism. As Dr. Stein told us, and this is a literal word for word quote, this is a verbatim quote. If Julian Assange is not freed, the ice caps will melt.
I love it. I mean, whatever justification you need to free Assange, I'm behind it. So.
Sure. We are in a climate crisis, and the only way to fix it is to drop all charges against Julian Assange and let him go. That makes as much sense as saying we have to take money, let the government take our money and throw it at the sun. I mean, really,
more sense, honestly,
more sense. Really, this is at least a good thing too, right? So it works, it doesn't work.
Right.
Worst case scenario, we all burn to death or drown or freeze or whatever the thing is now. Or all three. But at least Julian Assange will be free when he has to burn, drown, and freeze. But I liked the strategy because I felt like the strategy was very like, if you distilled it down, it was like, if Julian Assange is not freed, we're all going to die. And I'm with it. Like, if that's what it takes, like you said, if that's what it takes to get people behind freeing Julian Assange, it's like, listen, I don't even really know what I think about WikiLeaks, but I don't want me and everyone I know to die. Fine. Whatever your motivation is, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you and Dave DeCamp both gave great talks that were very informative and pretty compelling, but they just didn't stick with me like if we don't free Julian Assange, then the ice caps will melt. So I'm like, who's really making a better case here to the public, It's not
even a political issue. If you don't want to die and have the planet made unlivable for all of humanity and most other species as well, you have to get behind Julian Assange. We can put aside what you think of the war in Ukraine or what you think of, January 6th, which frankly is, the worst thing that's happened.
Yeah,
but we could have, if Julian Assange is not freed, something that is arguably as bad as January 6th could happen. We could all pass away from the water, I think.
Yeah, you just actually, my brain just clicked while you were talking right there. We need to convince those 30 members of the Progressive Caucus in Congress that retracted their letter that if Biden doesn't negotiate with Russia, that January 6th is going to happen again. Because like nuclear war, yeah, it's bad or whatever, but January 6th, like, geez, that's that's a heavy hitter.
Listen, the experts told us that if nuclear war happens, you get under the table and you'll be fine, right? And I trust science.
Or under the tablecloth, even, whatever you've got on.
Whatever, just something. Get under something with the word table in it, and you'll be okay. Or chair. Anything with the word chair or table in it, you should be good. And I don't know about you, but I'm not a science denier, okay? So, I think that honestly, I am behind. I used to say I didn't like fear-based messaging, but I actually have come after hearing Dr. Stein say it. I am now not just behind fear-based messaging. I think we should go straight to the idea of just everything is, if you don't support this, whatever this is, everyone is going to die. It's clear cut. Everyone connects with it. It hits you here right in the emotions. It's anyone who comes out against it, well, I guess you're pro everyone dying. It's a powerful thing.
Yeah, no, it really is. Speaking of nuclear war, have you researched the atomic bombs they dropped during the Cold War? Like how much bigger than the ones at Hiroshima and Nagasaki were? Because I always knew they got bigger, like they're bigger now than they used to be. I had no idea how much bigger, because I was always into World War II, but I never researched the Cold War nearly as much. And over the last couple of weeks, I've done a bit of digging, and I found out that the Castle Bravo H-bomb test that was in Bikini Atoll in 1954. Yeah. They miscalculated how big the explosion was going to be by what was it? It was 250% the size they had estimated, and they had to evacuate all the islands. Tons of native fishermen got burned, and a bunch of them died from radiation poisoning. And it was 1,000 times the size of the nuke dropped on Hiroshima. And then the Russians, I knew about the Tsar bomb. I'd heard about it. But again, I didn't realize how big it was. It was like 4 times the size of the Castle Bravo bomb. So like I learned new terminology too. There's kilotons and then there's megatons.
Megatons.
So I think kilotons are 1,000 tons of TNT. And then I think megatons are 1,000,000 tons of TNT. So the one dropped on Hiroshima, I think, was 15 kilotons. And then the one dropped at Castle Bravo was 15 megatons, so 1,000 times the size. And then the Tsar bomb that the Russians dropped was 50 megatons. Just like, geez. So like, and then I watched a video of the a comparison of the one in Hiroshima going off in Manhattan, and the blast zone like takes up the size of Central Park and a little bit further, and then it like disintegrates pretty quickly. The Tsar bomb is from like New Haven, Connecticut to Trenton, New Jersey. And I mean, it's just wow. I didn't have any idea how exponentially bigger they'd gotten.
They're even, and that's on, the Tsar bomb, which was basically like, it engineered to be this gigantic bomb. But like even the stuff that they have in cruise missiles are hundreds or even 1,000 or more times more powerful than Fat Man and Little Boy were. Like it's right. the stuff that like we don't understand that the United States, Russia, China, those 3 countries each have enough nuclear warheads to kill everyone on Earth. I believe multiple times over. Russia certainly does, and I believe the U.S. does. China, I'm not positive, but I know at least once or twice China is able to destroy everyone on Earth. what is the point of this? Like, what strategic value? I understand the strategic value of maybe having a couple of these things or a few of them to say, hey, if you attack us, you and everything you love will die. Going back to that fear-based messaging, if you don't attack us, or everyone will die, including you. But if you attack me, I'm gonna kill everyone multiple times over. What does that do? The Fat Man and Little Boy bombs, the original atomic bombs before the era of the H bombs, they destroyed entire cities or neighborhoods. Very deadly, very dangerous. The bombs that they have now, that thankfully have never actually been used in war, to take chunks out of the earth and make them unlivable for extremely long periods of time. The nuclear tests that were done in the skies starting in the 1950s did so much. They actually altered the atmosphere so much that there is now a way to do carbon that one of the ways that they will date, and I'm forgetting what it is now, but one of the ways that they'll measure aging certain things is by the presence of the radioactive isotopes that were released during those bombs, because that never existed in nature prior to when that started in the 1951 or 52 or something like that. And so it's like the severe amount of damage that was done just by the testing of these weapons, and the massive numbers of people killed and exposed to radiation from testing the weapons. These are not like, there's a reason they haven't been used. I mean, mutually assured destruction is a real thing. It's different to say, oh, you might get shot. And it's another thing to say, yeah, you will definitely be incinerated, and so will everyone else in your country and surrounding countries as well. And I guess that's good from a deterrence standpoint, but the point of deterrence is to not do the thing that you're being deterred from. Right. So if you start doing that thing, then it's not deterrence, it's suicide. And I don't get it. I don't get the proclivity to doing something so heinous and stupid that you end up killing everyone.
Yeah, because I've had mixed opinions on mutually assured destruction, because it's undeniable that nukes have stopped us from getting into major wars with other superpowers since World War II. Like Russia and the United States have never directly fought against each other. We wouldn't do it with China either. But we're getting to the point where we're thinking like, maybe we will fight Russia actually. And actually, maybe if China does invade Taiwan, maybe we will fight China. So it's getting to the point where it's like, okay, now there's not really an argument for having these things. If they're going to cross the line. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's a horrifying thing. I still need to read Scott Horton's new book, Hotter Than the Sun, because I've been a proponent of mutually assured destruction on an even wider scale, and actually, smaller level nuclear proliferation. I think a lot of these countries, that if they had nuclear weapons, that they wouldn't be bombed by the US or China or Russia or anyone else. If Ukraine still had its nukes, I don't think what's happened over the past few years would have ever happened on the NATO side or the Russian side. But with that said, I do want to hear what Scott's argument is. And I know at least part of the argument is, if these things are actually ever used, we'll all die. And even if you're not in the areas that get completely exploded, if enough of these go off, enough of the whatever it is that goes into the atmosphere that then covers us, the ash and soot, and then now if you don't die from the actual blast themselves or the radiation that happened, then you die from nuclear winter, because it covers the entire atmosphere and you don't get enough sun. And
wait. So is it freeing Julian Assange will protect the ice caps, but also nuclear war will? Can we combine these two arguments? Like, if we have nuclear war, we save the ice caps, or we could free Julian Assange. Like that even adds another level. Like, look, guys, there's only two ways out of this. We either blow up everything, or we free Julian Assange.
We got two options, and they both got trade-offs. Okay, so the first option is we free Julian Assange. Ice caps are perfect, but the side effect is that Julian Assange is free. But we do, thankfully, that's a little bit too much for you. We have this other option. Again, has a trade-off. It will preserve the ice caps. Julian Assange does not have to be freed. We will all die. We will all die. But the ice caps might, if anything, grow. So,
on the upside, if nuclear war happens, we don't have Ohio anymore. And I hate Ohio. So, there is kind of an upside to that.
That's brutal because I'm supposed to actually be in Ohio next week.
Oh, you don't need to comment on that then.
Yeah, no comment on whether Ohio should be. Yeah, no, I think it's absurd. And we've started seeing articles, and that's what scares me, because usually when something's about to happen, corporate media starts dropping these little hints of like trying to normalize or go, well, maybe this isn't so bad. And they were like, there were articles that are like, well, a limited nuclear war, whatever the hell that is, a limited nuclear war could actually fight climate change. And I added, and inflation too. It would, because the price of things would go down because hundreds of millions or billions of people would die, thereby, at least in theory, reducing demand. But one would argue it might also reduce supply, since billions of people would die. I'm not sure I also am not sure what a limited nuclear war is, but I guess maybe one bomb dropping. I'm not sure.
Well, as long as they don't have a ton of Castle Bravo incidents where they accidentally set off nukes that are 2.5 times the size they thought they would be, because it would be a limited strike, and then like, oh shit.
Oh wait, oh no. This was guys, listen, before we all die, I would just like to clear my conscience and let you know that we thought it was limited, and it turns out it was actually much bigger. So definitely our fault. And I think we should propose an amnesty. I don't know if you saw it.
I did see,
the COVID amnesty.
Yes.
So here, if folks remember the people out there who were calling for you to have your lives and livelihoods ruined, those of your children ruined during COVID, in order to protect their hypochondria. And then when the vaccine came out, they shifted to advocating for you to lose everything if you didn't get this vaccine. Whether or not you wanted to actually get it, you had to get it, because if you didn't, they would make sure that your life was destroyed. And if you did die of COVID or really anything else, they would mock you and laugh at you. Well, now these folks have experienced reality and seen that they were the monsters, they were the bad guys, and so now they are sheepishly calling for an amnesty where we just kind of forget all that happened, because things happen. It's just incredible.
It is incredible.
It's amazing.
I mean, to me, there's two different levels to this. Like on a friendship and family relationship level, as long as they didn't do anything too heinous, I have like a forgive but won't forget policy. Like,
right.
And
like, I get
okay.
That. Yeah.
Like one of my uncles, he came to my brother's wedding, and I hadn't seen him since everything kicked off, and he'd been a super big prick about everything, but it was just water under the table, whatever. I'll always remember, but I'll just let it go. But then there's like two levels. There are the people who were just bitches about it. And then there's the people who were like advocating for this stuff and coming up with these policies on stuff that they knew was bullshit. And I don't think we should just forgive or forget about them. Like, some of them I think should go to prison, but the ones who were advocating for it on the news, who knew it was wrong, like, they should absolutely lose their jobs and be ashamed to ever show their faces in public again. Like, but I don't think any of it's going to happen. I think the amnesty is going to basically take place. Like, everyone, I mean, because think of all the other lies all these people have perpetrated and perpetuated, on us over the years, like the Iraq War. A lot of people who lied about the Iraq War, nothing happened to them, or any other war since then. Like, they get away with all of it. So, or the lying about the housing market not going to crash, or lying about inflation not going to take off, all this stuff, nothing happens to them. So I don't understand why it suddenly would with this, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people are finally having enough. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that there's definitely going to be there are a lot of people who don't trust the politicians that they recognize were behind this, and the policy leaders, and the Anthony Fauci's, the officials, and the corporate media people that did it. The problem is a lot of them still think the other side can be trusted, even though a lot of the people on the other side were at least somewhat saying and doing the same things, maybe not to the same extent, but still kind of doing it, Donald Trump. And that's a problem, because if you have the mindset, which, and I had this for a few years, I believe you did as well for some time, this mindset that the problem with everything is exactly one half of the ruling class. And the only people who can stop them and be trusted are the other half of the ruling class.
Yeah.
And anytime members of that other half do things exactly or largely the same, well, they're not real members of my half. And it's garbage. Like I recently, and this is completely unrelated to this issue, but it's an example. There was an issue in Florida. Apparently, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, who's a big hero on the right, and even among a lot of libertarians, Ron DeSantis apparently will not show up at an event unless it's a gun-free zone. Unless, even though he has multiple times said that gun-free zones don't work. And he's right when he says that. And so someone came out, one of his supporters actually came out and protested it on public property, on a sidewalk, and got arrested for it, even though what he was doing was perfectly legal. And it's illegal by Florida law to declare something a no-gun zone if it's in an area that the legislature has kept open for guns. That's actually not allowed. So it was DeSantis's people breaking the law. This guy was not breaking the law, but he got arrested. And so I pointed this out to people, and I could not believe the number of people who were just like, no, Ron DeSantis said that gun control and gun-free zones don't work. I don't believe he did that. And I'm like, well, but he did. Like, this isn't disputed. He did do this, or his team did, or his people did, or whatever. But like his campaign, his administration did this. It actually happened. And they're like, no. Or they'd fall into the typical thing we hear of, well, but Charlie Crist is terrible too. Yes, no one's disputing that. But if you just say this guy's worse, and then what I also saw, there were people that did acknowledge it and went, man, I'm really sad to see that Ron DeSantis is a rhino. And it's like, no, he's just a Republican. Like,
right.
Donald Trump supports red flag laws too, and like it's
Ron Paul was the rhino.
Ron Paul was the rhino. Like literally, Ron Paul.
Yeah.
You could argue in some ways Thomas Massey is a rhino. Justin Amash was definitely a rhino. Like
Rand Paul's a rhino like 50% of the time.
Rand Paul has his moments of being being a rhino, and his other moments of definitely being a Republican. Like, this is what they are. And it's just, again, it's that whole like lesser evil. They're falling victim for a scam. Like it's a scam, and it's set up that way. It's set up for you to keep voting for this side. The other side is voting for this side, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And that's why we need Walker Fetterman 24, just a total palate cleanser to force the people who don't go directly into defending. And I think what scares me is that like most of the country will just come together to make excuses for them. I think that's what would happen. I hope I'm wrong. I hope most people would go, no, really, wait, what happened? But I fear that it would actually unite America, or the majority of voters around going, wow, I mean, he was one of the greatest athletes ever, and this guy, I mean, it sounds like you're being ableist,
Yeah, no, it's it's amazing seeing people defend the most obvious contradictions to the death. So, have you heard about this guy who's running Republican for Senate up here in New Hampshire, Don Baldick? Have you heard anything about him?
I've heard bits and pieces. I know that either he or people around him have been, very like hawkish on Ukraine, and I think Taiwan as well, right?
Yeah, so I got a clip here. I'll just play it. You might have seen part of it, but just in case anyone in the audience hasn't seen it, here it goes.
Resistance that's going to win. But what boggles my mind, Steve, is the fact that we haven't gone all in on this already. Diplomatically, informationally, militarily.
And I should have set this up, but this was on February 28th. So this is like a couple days after Putin pushed into eastern Ukraine.
And economically. This is not a time for pause right now. We need to get in there, and we need to help them on the ground. We have columns of his troops lined up, ready to be, interdicted. And
So he's talking about Putin there. We got columns of his troops lined up. I didn't know this word, interdicted, but it means basically attack. So bomb,
bomb,
like
and
airstrike
missile.
them.
Strike.
We need to give that kind of help to the Ukrainians, but we're just sitting back and we're not doing anything, and we're just saying, oh, you know, everything is on the table. Well, now's the time. Putin is a global threat. He is an enemy to the world, and that's what we have to start telling people he is. And we can't take any pressure off China either. We got to go after China because they're in this with them, and we don't want them going into Taiwan.
Yeah, so, I mean, China doesn't even have anything to do with the conversation, and he's just like, oh, by the way.
Yeah, what? That's why
need to go after China.
Wait, what? China? Wait, what? What was okay? That's why we need to take on Russia and also China. What? So just to keep this in mind, the same military-industrial complex that spent a generation and trillions of dollars to replace the Taliban with a better armed and higher moraled Taliban is definitely going to beat Russia and China without resorting to killing all of us with nuclear weapons. Definitely. I definitely believe it's in the same way that if you couldn't, you know, using like a boxing term, if you couldn't beat a if you couldn't beat the straw weight champ, you definitely can beat like that Tyson Fury. Like that's definitely like if you can't, if this guy, if you fight for 20 years, which is like 600,000 rounds or something like that, and you cannot beat the strawweight champ, you are definitely going to knock out Tyson Fury.
Yeah, 100%. Like I've got no doubts. The funny thing is, you probably heard, you've seen Tulsi Gabbard left the Democrat Party, and she's been going around endorsing all these Republicans everywhere. Well, Don Baldock was one of the guys she endorsed. She actually came here to New Hampshire to campaign for him. And I was just like, so first of all, I was just really pissed because even though I've disagreed with Tulsi on a lot of issues, she's always had like this independent streak. So my thought was like, if you leave the Democrat Party, you can start not a new party or anything, but you could be like the Ron Paul Institute and create your own thing.
Just be independent, just like make your own thing.
Supports candidates that you like or whatever. And this was her first endorsement out of the gate. And it was because she's worried about the Biden administration pushing us toward nuclear war. And it's like, I don't know if you just heard the same clip I did, but he was pissed that Biden like wasn't doing enough to get us into World War III.
If this guy ends up making it to the Senate, the only thing for the next 2 years that will keep us from this guy launching nuclear war is Joe Biden. So like, exactly. It's unfortunate. I mean, here's the thing. Tulsi Gabbard has been pretty consistent in the need to scale back the military-industrial complex. But what has always worried me is that there was always this reference to, we need to fight the real enemy, Islamic terrorism. And I'm like, well, actually, I think we need to stop making boogeymen and creating terror groups and then using them as an excuse to continue bombing the countries that we put them in. I think, so that always concerned me. But I thought, well, at least she's talking tough on the other stuff, like, you know, getting out of the other things. Well, this is a direct, like, that was the most talk. That sounds like John Bolton gave him the talking point, or Bill Kristol or something gave him the talking points for that. That's frightening.
Yeah. So there were a lot of people that I knew in New Hampshire who campaigned for Tulsi Gabbard. And a lot of them were like, what are you doing? No, I'm not voting for this guy. But then some of them just were like, yes, whatever you say, Tulsi. And I was arguing. I went to one of these events and I actually got like face to face with this guy who was just really like fuming angry at me. And I told him, dude, Don Baldock is a warmonger. He wants to go to war with Russia and China. And then on his website, that's not enough. We also got to counter North Korea and Iran and, you know, like all the typical tropes about foreign policy, like peace through strength. You know, we can't lead from behind, blah, blah, blah. He sounds like Lindsey Graham. He's endorsed by Mike Pompeo, Nikki Haley, you know, all the greats. All the greats. And this guy he was like the people that you were talking about on your first half of your example of DeSantis, he just would not hear it. He was like, nope. This was the funniest part. He was like, whoever Tulsi Gabbard endorses is good by me. And I was like, oh, really? What about Joe Biden? Because she endorsed Joe Biden. He was like, well, you know, like, but it's amazing, man. Like just the blinders that come on when someone you like says something you like, and even if it directly contradicts everything that they say they stand for, you just ignore it and keep on chugging. That's I don't know. It's amazing to see. I mean, and I expect it from most people, right? But this is the thing. So like Jeremy Kauffman isn't allowed in the debates because they had polling requirements that we didn't meet.
Right.
And I was talking with some of these Tulsi supporters about like how it's unfair that he's being excluded. And Tulsi supporters from 2020 are telling me there's no way he can win. Why bother supporting him? I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Do you remember 2020? Like how absolute zero of a chance Tulsi Gabbard had the entire time. Now everyone was telling us like she has no chance. You got to support Bernie so he beats Biden. And I was like, well, I don't support Bernie. I don't like Bernie. He's, you know, he sucks and he's a fraud or whatever. But it was the constant talking point. You're being stupid standing on principle here because this person can't win. So then these same people are giving me that exact same talking point again. I was just like, wow. So I expect it from most people, but it's disappointing to see it when it's people that you thought kind of had a clue for a while.
Yeah, it is a problem. And I think what happens is, and I saw it in 2020 where a lot of people who were saying, if my pick, whether it was Republican or Democrat, doesn't win, I can't vote for the rest of these, rhinos or the rest of these, whatever. And I'll vote third party. And then they didn't because they go, well, but they can't win. It's like, well, your person didn't win. If enough of us stop saying, okay, well, if enough of us stop saying, I'm going to vote for who I think can win, and instead say, at this point, I don't even care who wins. I want to vote unless it's this person who I support and whose values align with mine. Then if enough people did that, we could actually have candidates that work. And I know there's the whole like Devereux's law and everything that in any first past the post election system, people tend to break into two camps and all of that stuff, which is why libertarians tend to support ranked choice voting and other plural voting systems to kind of take that dynamic away. But in the meantime, man, like I tell people, I'm like, okay, you say we can't win. What are you winning? Like you vote for someone that doesn't align with you, that you don't support, because the person you did support, who spent sometimes years ravaging this person and saying how terrible they are, is now suddenly saying there are only hope, you have to vote for them, because they're saying that you're going to throw all your principle away. You already know they're going to disappoint you. What are you winning other than your side or your pick winning? You're being scammed.
Yeah.
Like this is like a prostitute staying with her pimp because he's winning. It's like, well, yeah, but you're losing. It's at your expense that this guy's winning. And it's the same dynamic. And it's like, why not vote for someone who, if they do win, whether they have a chance of winning or not, if they did win, you'd win too. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah. It's so funny seeing all these Republicans campaign on how awful the inflation of the last 22 months has been. It's always that very specific number, 22. Like, not like the last 30 months or so, like the COVID policies of the last 22 months.
Yep.
I don't know about you, but I didn't experience any lockdowns while Biden was president. It was all while Trump was president and while the Republicans had control of the Senate. And I realized the Senate and Donald Trump weren't in control of locking down each state. I'm not insinuating that they are, but that's the counter argument I'm getting is that we need to get Republicans in the federal government so we don't have these COVID policies anymore. And it's like,
and I want to say something about that. No, they weren't in control of the states locking down, but the states were getting their guidance and the schools were getting their guidance from the CDC and the National Institutes of Health, who in many cases, including when it came to mask mandates in schools and shutting down schools, their own data showed that it didn't do anything. It wasn't helpful. It did nothing to stop or slow the spread. And an increasing amount of anecdotal data or anecdotal reports and some data at the initial points of the lockdown showed that the lockdowns weren't working, but they kept pushing for it. Donald Trump, it's great that Donald Trump would pick up his phone when he was on the toilet at 5 a.m. and say, free Minnesota, free Michigan, free, like where he freed all the different states.
Yeah.
Fire Fauci. Fire everyone involved in that, or at the very least, tell them, no, you're going to be fired if you don't put back George Bush's 2005 bird flu plan and stop using it for this thing. If you don't go back to, having something that's actually evidence-based, and if you don't go back to being an agency giving information about what's happening with this pandemic, as opposed to telling or giving serious guidance on lockdowns and school shutdowns and all of this stuff, that happened under the Trump administration from guidance from the Trump administration. And it's, the CDC under Trump issued a moratorium on evictions. That was Donald Trump's administration doing that. Yeah. And it was, red states going, we must stop Anthony Fauci. Donald Trump's his boss. The amount of cognitive dissonance that had to be in play. And then they go, yeah, but Donald Trump would have never done a vaccine mandate. No? Really? Do you really believe that? I'm not convinced of that. I mean, maybe he wouldn't have done it, but he certainly wouldn't have stopped the CDC from guiding all the states to do it. And it would have been harder for the red states to fight against it when the president and the administration is under a Republican. That was a big problem with the lockdowns. Trump fought against Brian Kemp, when he ended the lockdown sooner than he wanted him to, and he attacked other governors who were ending them too soon. So no, I don't believe that. At the very least, all of the statewide and local mandates would have happened, and I'm not convinced he wouldn't have done a federal mandate.
Yeah, no, you're making the point that I made toward the election in 2020. I wanted Biden to win, not because I like him more. I think he's actually worse than Trump, but it's because he's worse than Trump that there would be actual resistance to him, right? Like Trump, I was talking with, I had Jeremy on the show earlier today, and we're talking, this guy, Don Baldick, is kind of a MAGA Republican. And the guy that he beat was more of like a Mitch McConnell establishment type Republican. And there's this conception that MAGA Republicans are more rebellious and that they actually will stick it to the federal government and try to represent the people. And in my mind, except for a couple instances where sometimes that happens with a couple of them, for the most part, that's just a fake veneer that is all wrapped up in, it's just rhetoric. There's very rarely any action behind it. It's not real. And it's almost entirely words, unless there's a Democrat in the White House. Then suddenly, we got to oppose. And sometimes then they still don't even do it. But at least when there's a Democrat in the White House, the Republicans care a little bit more about the stuff that they're supposed to. Whereas if it's Trump, like when we had Trump and a Republican House and Senate, might as well have a Democrat administration, because it doesn't, there's literally nothing to stop them. And then if you have
not just a Democrat administration, it would be it was essentially like having a Democrat administration and a Democrat supermajority in both houses, because the Democrats were going along with most of the big government agenda. They'd call him Hitler and then give him more money than he requested for the military. But a good number, probably most of the Republicans, almost never challenged him on anything. So you ended up with a de facto pro-big government supermajority on all things.
Yeah, exactly. Because when the Democrats are the minority, they never oppose spending. So they're useless when they're the minority.
They want more spending. Yeah.
When the Republicans are the minority, or when they're the party that's not in power, but they have either the House or the Senate or something, then they might give you some gridlock. So I was like, why would I want Trump to win? He's rubber stamped literally everything that's come to his desk. He did temporarily hold up that second COVID bill, which I was proud of him for about 4 days or whatever it was. And then he just caved and signed it anyway. So I don't know. People are. I was expecting the amnesia, but I thought things were turbulent enough that it would have woken more people up. But people are totally gobbling up the. We just need to get Republicans in there because they're going to stop this crazy left-wing agenda that they actually started, basically.
Yeah, I spotted the pattern after 3 or maybe 4 election cycles where it was like, and when I say 3 cycles, I mean like every 2 years, like the presidential midterm, where, you know, for a long time I was a Republican, a neocon Republican. And then after that, for a while, a little bit, I was more of like a constitutionalist, you know, liberty leaning Republican. And but what never changed was my sincere belief that all good things would end if the other party won, if the Democrats won. And I'd see those morons on the Democrat Party who thought that every good thing would end if my party won. Well, didn't they know it was the exact opposite of that, Reed? And so and then I would watch, and it seemed increasingly like, silly me, it seemed like whichever party won, things would just get kind of worse. Everything bad didn't happen and everything good didn't end, but it just kind of got a little worse, or a lot worse, but you know, it got however amount worse. And then the other side would win, and I'd either be very happy or very upset, and then things would get a little bit worse. And it didn't take long for me to spot that pattern. And I think you know, because you would say, well, it's getting worse because the Democrats are still getting in there and they're still doing stuff. And then I'd watch enough Republicans join them and I go, well, those aren't the real Republicans. And then I realized it was an anarchist who told me, a guy named Lou Sander, who said, you sound like the people who said that wasn't real communism. And I'm like, wow, yeah, you're right. And that was like, kind of made me realize like, oh yeah, that's not, and then that sort of forced me to re-examine stuff. But yeah, I'm concerned at the number of people who have been watching these cycles longer than either of us have been alive and still haven't figured it out. They like, and some of them have switched from Democrat to Republican or Republican to Democrat or whatever, but they still haven't caught the pattern that, you know, especially having been on both sides, that it's all just a scam. Whoever, you know, I forget who said it, but whoever you vote for, you get John McCain. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think it was Tom Woods who said that.
I believe so.
Yeah. You know, I've already caught myself thinking like, okay, the Republicans are going to win, which, by the way, I'm predicting this right now. Heard it here first. I think Blake Masters will win. I think Don Baldock will win. I think Herschel Walker will win. And I think Oz will definitely win.
I think Oz is going to win. I think.
I mean, I'm with you. I want Fetterman for all that I'm worth, but it'll be Oz. So
it frees him up for his vice presidential or presidential run with Herschel Walker.
That's true. We got to look at
the only one there that I think might not win is Walker, because it's really, really, really close. And I'm not convinced they don't have one more thing to hit him with, although they may have. And honestly, at this point, everyone's so decensed. At this point in Georgia, there's not anything else they could say.
I was going to say, what could possibly like make him less credible at this point?
Like, I mean, it would, you know, it's like the shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue thing. But I think I'm not sure there's anything else that would make people go. I mean, unless he like killed someone or raped someone or something like that, and they'd have to have proof of it. Like there'd have to.
What if he like forced several women to get abortions and then said he wanted to ban abortion? Do you think that might do it? Or
I think that's. But you mean 7 more women?
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, and it's on video. Him going, "I'm Herschel Walker, and you need to get an abortion, but abortion's bad." And I endorse this message. Like you'd have to then look in the camera and say, I'm Herschel Walker and I endorse this message. It might peel off half a point for him. It's really sad. I don't know if you caught that debate, which by the way, the gubernatorial debate with Shane Hazel and Kemp
so good.
and Stacey. Oh my God, beautiful. But Chase Oliver's debate with Warnock was fantastic. Chase would say things like, Senator Warnock, you voted for a 60 million, however big, however many pages bill, and there's no way you could have read it because you voted for it, hours after it was introduced. Are you going to start? Are you going to continue not reading the bills that you're voting for? And Walker would usually not even look at him, and he would just go, "Well, my opponent, like Chase wasn't even there. My opponent isn't even here." It's like, yeah, but you were asked a question by your other opponent who is here. And I'm sure that peeled away at least a few people, but it's likely that it's going to go to a runoff. I'm not sure either side's going to get 50%, which means Chase will be out of it. And I don't know, man, that one's a toss up, but it's a red state. It's going to come down to, especially if the other races are close and it comes down to balance of power type of thing. I think Walker's probably going to win that. Yeah.
You're conflicted now because there's libertarians in the race. So we got to support Shane and Chase. But once the runoff is over and it's the second one that they're doing, then you can just come right out and say, guys, I have to support Herschel Walker. I mean, I don't really have a choice.
For the greater good. For the greater good. It's not for Herschel. It's not for the Republican Party. And it's certainly not for the Senate.
As a former vice presidential candidate from a neighboring state, I think you'll throw it to Herschel Walker once that endorsement officially comes out.
The Cohen endorsement. That'll be the November surprise. The Cohen endorsement. Where I go, guys, listen, look. I'm not happy about it either. But the sooner we get Walker, we need Walker and Fetterman. Who hopefully he's Pennsylvania. And I'll say, listen, the sooner we get Walker and Fetterman together in the Senate, the sooner that their crazy tones match and they become friends and realize that only they can save the planet, and then run for president and vice president. And I think they should just run for co-president. And I think the best part of that campaign is no one would know which one's running for president or vice president, including them, especially them. They wouldn't know. They wouldn't know or care. And I think we need it. We need it. It's what America needs.
See, I'm at the point where I just realize basically none of the policies that I want implemented are going to be implemented. So might as well just go with the most hilarious shit show possible. So, there's a meme someone sent me. It's like the pessimist versus the guy who just laughs at everything. So like next to the pessimist is just like cries when he reads the news, hangs his head in sorrow. But then the other guy's like laughs into the abyss, smiles while reading the news, chuckles while seeing society fall apart or whatever. Like
smells like cotton candy. Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of there. So for example, like I am a pretty moderate person on abortion. Like I feel like some extreme cases should be illegal, but then some other like I'm pretty middle of the road on it. But when Roe v. Wade was overturned, or it wasn't even when it was overturned, it was just when the leak came out,
when they said it was going to be,
just the chaos that ensued that night on Twitter, because I still had a Twitter account. I was just absolutely loving life. I was just like, this is so amazing. Now these people can understand that this is how I feel all the time.
All the time.
Everything.
It's great. It's when the people who were just telling you how we have to save democracy and, how this system, the government needs to provide all of our needs without flinching or blinking, will turn on a dime and say the entire system has failed. And, it's time to resist by voting for one half of the status quo, but only that half. And if you don't vote for this half, then democracy is ruined. If you don't vote for only one party, then democracy, the system of choosing from multiple parties and candidates, is ruined if you don't just vote for this one person.
And if we let third parties into the debates, democracy
then it's all die. Then the democracy, the country, it'll be like January 6th every morning. Every morning will be the morning of January 6th.
That sounds pretty good.
And the ice caps will melt.
The ice caps will melt, and it'll be January. Well, I think that's a good note to end on right there. I mean, that just kind of ties it all together,
That's good. I really got nothing else. Listen, folks, if you don't just go along with the status quo, half of it, you got to pick a half. If you don't go along with it, everyone is going to die. In fact, if you don't support policies that will lead to everyone dying, then everyone is going to die. It's what you got with two choices: everyone dies or everyone dies.
We just needed a limited January 6th, like not a full blown one, just a limited one.
It would have helped climate change. Yeah. Limited. Here's how a limited January 6th would have helped climate change. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on Halloween, a holiday that neither you or I grew up celebrating. We miss the American experience. What you got coming up that's interesting? Any crazy stuff coming down the pipe?
Yeah, I've got some really exciting stuff coming up. So this Tuesday, I will be in Brevard County. Is that how you say it? Brevard County. I'll be in Melbourne, Florida for the LP Libertarian Party Gold Gala, which is on election night. We're having it at a zoo, which, you know, signifies that this whole thing is a zoo. It's pretty funny there. And also my wife loves the zoo, so they did it at a zoo, so we could do it there. And so if you want to be a part of that, if you go to LP Brevard County's website or their social media and sign up for the Gold Gala, we'd love to see you there. And then that'll be on this Tuesday, the 8th. So not tomorrow, but the following. When is this coming out? Oh, this is live.
This is live, man.
Oh, that's live. Okay, so yeah, so you it'll be next Tuesday, the 8th. And then on Friday, the 11th and Saturday, the 12th, I will be speaking on a criminal justice reform event over a weekend event sponsored by many different criminal justice reform groups in Columbus, Ohio. And I'm actually not 100% sure how you sign up for that, but follow my social media because I'm going to be putting out a post later this week about how you can sign up for that, because I'm not even sure how you can sign up for that, but sign up for that. And so follow me on social media and you'll find that. And as you probably already know, I am, I run a nonprofit called You Are the Power. And we are finding people who are being run roughshod by their local governments. We're helping to organize them to set their communities free. And we're using it as an opportunity to show people how the liberty movement has the only real solutions to fix the problems that we're facing. If you'd like to be a part of that, go to youarethepower.net. You can become a member today. And if you want to get this sweet ass shirt that just came out, go to youarethepower.net/cyber. And all proceeds for the sale of that shirt will go to You Are the Power, and they'll be matched dollar for dollar because we have a generous donor who's matching all of our donations this month, dollar for dollar.
That is the perfect shirt for you. Or you could even just change it to the ATF, and it would still work. But
that would work just as well. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, you heard it. Vote Libertarian, or the ice caps will melt, and we'll have a limited nuclear war, and we'll all die. So make sure you
join You Are the Power. Vote Libertarian and join You Are the Power, or it's all over, and there's nothing I can do about it. Julian Assange will remain in jail, and the ice caps will melt.
Yeah, that's what my pitch is going to be when I'm standing outside the polls on Tuesday. Why should I vote for this guy, Jeremy? Well, if you don't, the ice caps are going to melt. We will have an unlimited nuclear war, and we'll all die. So
we're all going to die.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll do it again soon.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on again.